Despite it being the very tail end of his career, number 10 on my list of top 10 pitchers in the 1970s is legendary Hall of Famer Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson in 1970 flat out won the Cy Young Award. He won 23 games that year, pitched 23 complete games, had 274 strikeouts, and an ERA of 3.12. For the decade, he won 84 games, had 89 complete games, was just shy of 1,000 strikeouts, and had an ERA of 3.20. He threw a no-hitter in 1971, and at the time of his retirement, he was second all-time on the career strikeout list. A fun little fact that I learned about Bob Gibson when I was researching this video is that before he became a professional pitcher, he toured briefly with the Harlem Globetrotters. Great athlete. Number 9 on the list is Hall of Famer Don Sutton. Don Sutton was Mr. Consistency of the 1970s. He finished in the top 5 for Cy Young voting 5 times, but never won it. He won 15 or more games 8 times during the decade, and for the decade total, he won 166 games, 117 complete games, nearly 1,800 strikeouts, and he finished with an ERA of 3.07. Along the same vein as having never won the Cy Young Award, his teams played in the World Series 5 times in the 1970s, and he doesn't have a ring to show for it. Number 8 on my list, my favorite pitcher of all time, this guy, the Ryan Express. So Nolan Ryan, in the 70s alone, led the league in strikeouts 7 times. And in those 7 years, he led the league in strikeouts per 9 innings also. So it wasn't just because he was pitching a lot of innings, which he did. He was striking out more batters than anyone else per 9 innings. He led the league in shutouts twice, complete games once during the decade. Now, a lot of people will tell you that Nolan Ryan never won the Cy Young Award because he didn't have good control. He walked a lot of batters, which is absolutely true. But I would argue that he never won the Cy Young Award because he played on lousy teams pretty much his entire career. I think he only made the playoffs once in 29,000 years that he pitched. In 1972 through 1974, his ERA for those 3 years combined was about 2.6. He won 60 games during those 3 years, which is great, but he also lost 48 games because he played on lousy teams. If just half of those losses were wins, he'd be pushing 30 wins per year, and those are Cy Young numbers. I think he wins one of those 3 years as a Cy Young, and he plays for a good team. Just my opinion. Okay, so what else did he do? He pitched 4 no-hitters in the 70s alone. For the decade, he had nearly 2,700 strikeouts, 155 wins, 164 complete games, and an ERA of 3.14. Interesting fact about Nolan Ryan regarding his career, he holds the all-time career record for least amount of hits given up per 9 innings, and that's because he struck out so many guys. Number 7, Catfish Hunter. Not only did he have the coolest name in baseball, but the guy could just flat out pitch. He was your 1974 Cy Young Award winner. He won 25 games that year with a 2.49 ERA. In 1971 through 1975, he won a whopping 111 games. And unlike Nolan Ryan, this guy made the playoffs almost every year in the 70s. He went to the World Series 6 times. He won 5 of them. In 1974, he became the richest baseball player at the time. He signed a 5-year contract with the New York Yankees for $3.35 million. And unfortunately, Catfish Hunter died at the young age of 53 from Lou Gehrig's disease. Hi folks, if you're enjoying this top 10 list, please take a moment to subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you. Okay, number 6, Ferguson Jenkins. Ferguson won the Cy Young in 1971. He won 24 games that year, pitched 30 complete games, and he only walked 37 batters for the entire season. He won 25 games in 1974 and finished second in Cy Young voting. He was more of a control pitcher. He would get a lot of strikeouts, but very few walks. 5 times during the 70s, he led the league in fewest amount of walks per 9 innings. Twice he led the league in complete games, and twice he led the league in wins. He is one of only 4 pitchers in Major League Baseball history to have more than 3,000 strikeouts and less than 1,000 walks. He finished the decade with 178 wins, 184 complete games, which is more than anybody on this top 10 list, and had an ERA of 3.38. All right, we're into the top 5. Number 5, Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton won the Cy Young Award twice during the decade. In '72, he led the league with 27 wins and a 1.97 ERA. He had 30 complete games, 346 innings pitched. Nobody's ever going to pitch that many innings again. He had 310 strikeouts. Here's the crazy thing about that season. He won 27 games. The Phillies, who he played for that year, only won 59 games. He won 46% of their games that year, which is a major league record and just boggles my mind. 5 years later, in 1977, he again won the Cy Young Award with 23 wins, a 2.64 ERA, 17 complete games. Kids will never get 17 complete games again, and 198 strikeouts. For the decade, he had over 2,000 strikeouts, 178 wins, 165 complete games, and a 3.18 ERA. Steve Carlton was the last National League pitcher to win 25 games, and he's the last Major League pitcher to throw more than 300 innings in a season, and I don't think these kids nowadays are ever going to touch those numbers. Number 4, Vida Blue. In 1971, Vida Blue won the Cy Young Award and the MVP. He won 24 games that year, had over 300 strikeouts, 24 complete games, 8 shutouts, and an ERA of 1.82. For the decade, he won 155 times, had 1,600 strikeouts, 124 complete games. Isn't that crazy? And an ERA of 3.09. He won 3 World Series championships with the Oakland A's, and baseball historian Bill James names Vida Blue as the second hardest thrower of his era, with only this guy throwing harder. Number 3, Gaylord Perry. Gaylord Perry won the Cy Young Award twice in the 70s, and in 1970 he finished second in voting. In '72, which was his best year, he won 24 games and led the league with 29 complete games, had 234 strikeouts, and an ERA of 1.92. Unbelievable. He won the Cy Young again in '78 with 21 wins versus just 6 losses and had an ERA of 2.73. For the decade, he led the league in wins 3 times, with a total of 184 wins, 1,900 strikeouts, 197 complete games, which might have actually been the most on this list, and an ERA of 2.92. He's the first pitcher to win the Cy Young Award in both leagues, the American and the National. He was the second pitcher to record 3,000 strikeouts and also have 300 wins, and he is the last pitcher to have completed 300 complete games in his career. And 150 years from now, he will still have been the last pitcher to have 300 complete games, because I don't think the league will have 300 complete games in the next 150 years. This guy, his numbers are unbelievable. Jim Palmer won the Cy Young Award 3 times in the 1970s, 73, 75, and 76. He finished in the top 5 an additional 4 seasons. He won 20 games or more 8 times and led the league in innings pitched 4 times. He led the league in ERA twice. His numbers are so eye-popping that it's hard to say for sure which season was his best, but I'm going to go with 1975 when he had 23 wins, 25 complete games, 10 shutouts, 10, and an ERA of 2.09. For the decade, he had 186 wins, over 1,500 strikeouts, 175 complete games, and a remarkable ERA for the decade of 2.58. For his career, remarkably, he never gave up a grand slam, and he never gave up back-to-back homers. Tom Seaver, number 1. He won the Cy Young Award twice in the 1970s. He had the lowest ERA 3 times, and he led the league in strikeouts 5 times. 4 times he had 20 wins or more. In 1971, he won 20 games and had an ERA of under 1.8, but did not win the Cy Young Award. He finished in the top 5 of Cy Young voting 6 times during the decade. In 1975, he led the league with 22 wins, 243 strikeouts, and had an ERA of 2.38. Twice during the decade, he led the league in shutouts, totaling 47 for the decade. 47 shutouts. For the decade, he had 178 wins, over 2,300 strikeouts, and an ERA of 2.61. With the New York Mets, he threw 5 one-hitters. And then finally, in 1978, when he was pitching with the Cincinnati Reds, he threw his first and only no-hitter. Only Seaver and Walter Johnson finished their career with more than 3,000 strikeouts, more than 300 wins, and an ERA under 3.0. So there's my take on the top 10. Please, if you think I should have done it differently, if you have different opinions, let me know in the comments. I love the interaction and the conversation regarding stuff like that, old-time baseball and football when I make football